Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Tonight we want to continue our discussion of this widely read, one of the most widely read books ever produced in the world, one of the most widely quoted books in the world, quoted on campuses of different universities across the globe, quoted by heads of state, kings, presidents, prime ministers, you name it. It's still bringing people into the fold of Islam today. In fact, I had a friend, brother I met, he's an imam in somewhere in Virginia, I believe. I met him last year. He was introduced to Islam by this book. He's a white guy, he's a white brother, Caucasian brother, introduced to Islam by this book. So this is a very special book, Autobiography of Malcom X. Tonight we're gonna cover chapter 12. We'll try to unpack chapter 12. There's a lot of information in chapter 12, so we'll do our very best. I'm sure we'll leave out something. Alhamdulillah, we're having a discussion afterwards, so we can go over things that I overlooked. So chapter 12 is full of stuff. It's packed. It starts out with Malcolm getting out of prison. He got out of prison in August of 1952, the year I was born. He got out of prison and he goes to Detroit and he stays with his brother Wilfred, who's a member of the Nation of Islam as well. He stays with him. And he has a job waiting for him. His brother Wilfred is a manager of a furniture store. We'll talk about that furniture store in a minute. He stayed with his brother Wilfred, a member of the Nation of Islam. And one of the things that stands out, he says when he gets out of prison, he buys three things that stays with him the rest of his life. He doesn't know that these things will be very valuable going in this future going forward. He bought a watch, eyeglasses, and a briefcase. He said these are things that he needed the rest of his life. He didn't know that when he bought them. He bought these things. So he stays with his brother, and he says something very astonishing about staying with his brother. In the first part of this chapter, he says that when they got to pray in the morning, he's going to pray in the morning before the sunrise. He said they would do some type of wudu to a certain extent. He said that they would get the prayer robes out and get the robes and everything and to pray. And I read this and I'm like, okay, I was in the Nation of Islam under Elijah Muhammad. I don't recall this ever been taught to the rank and file. I was in Mississippi. And I don't remember prayer like this. We used to pray with our hands out like in a dual position, facing the east, not necessarily facing the Kaaba, facing the east like that. So I said, well, maybe I missed something. So I talked to a friend who was a minister in Nation of Islam back in the 60s here in Dallas. I talked to him, asked him, said, do you recall this during the days of Nation of Islam? He said, no. He said, we prayed like this with our hands out, standing facing the east, not necessarily facing the Kaaba, facing the east. He said, we were not taught this in Nation of Islam. So I talked to another friend of mine who was in Nation of Islam under Elijah Muhammad, not this new thing, under Elijah Muhammad in California. And I asked him about this. He confirmed. He said, no, we were not taught this. He said, Imam Warbi Muhammad taught this after 75, 76, something like that. He said, in fact, we had chairs in the temples across the country. In the temple, we had chairs up until 1976. So we weren't making no sujood, anything like that. So I read this, Malcolm said that's the way they prayed when he was at his brother's house. I'm going like, okay, Wilfred had to be exposed to something different, had to learn it on his own because the rank and file of the Nation of Islam was not taught that, was not taught to pray like that. We only stood straight up and prayed like this, facing the east. We know anything about the Kaaba. That's how we was taught to pray. So this is a little different. So I looked at it, read it a couple times, but I confirmed this with two other people that the rank and file was not taught like that. So he talks about how they prayed. He talks about where he worked. He worked at a furniture store. His brother Wilfred was a manager of the store, and he was a salesperson. So he said this store was a pure exploitation of Black people. It was draining Black people of money. I've seen stores like this. He said they had dirt cheap furniture there. He said furniture was so cheap that he said that the fabric was just stapled onto the furniture. And he said they had this cheap imitation leopard skin, just cheap stuff that was no good. He said these poor people are hard-working poor people with hands that had done a lot of manual labor and wrinkled hands. People would come in wrinkled and shaken and scribbling their names on contracts that they've never read. Exorbitant interest rates, highway robbery interest rates. They're draining poor black people have money. And I remember these stores being set up in the black neighborhood. So he talks about that. This is a prime example of exploitation of black people, working class and very poor black people. He makes that clear. Then he's out of prison. So he's trying to acclimate himself to the temple there in Detroit. He said the temple's a storefront next to of all things, next to a hog. I thought this was interesting. A pig slaughtering plant. It was right next to a hog slaughtering plant. You hear Paul squealing while they have gatherings in their temple. So he get acclimated to the temple there. He compares the people in this community, a small community, because he said most of them had meetings, chairs were not even full, had a lot of empty chairs. And he was dismayed by this. But he compared the Muslims there under Elijah Muhammad with what he knew about Christians, African-American Christians. He said it was like night and day. He said these people were immaculate, very neat, well-dressed, and that they was well-mannered, children well-mannered, very polite. I remember when they used to address everybody, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, black and white. We did that with everybody. Yes, even with ourselves too. Yes, sir, brother. No, sir. Yes, ma'am, sister. That's how we address each other. So he was impressed with this. He was impressed with the moral character that he sees in the Muslim community compared to what he's seen known with the African-American Christian community. He's very impressed. So he makes a note of this in his autobiography. And it made me think about an old adage. This old adage that says that knowledge follows good character. Knowledge is like a slave. Knowledge follows good character. That's the old adage. The Prophet Muhammad, he said he came to husnul khuluq, to perfect character. And the Arabs were wild and doing all kinds of things that corrected the character, and then civilization came and knowledge came and so forth. So the adage says knowledge follows good character. So what the Nation Islam did for African American people is help beautify their character, help make their character a lot better, rectify their character. Yeah. Did knowledge come? Yes, knowledge of different things. Schools open up, restaurants, businesses, grocery stores, farmland, import business. One time we had the largest among African-American people in the Western world, the largest import business. We were importing hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds of fish from Peru and from Japan and from Argentina, hundreds and hundreds of million pounds every year. It created thousands and thousands of jobs in these inner cities across America. I remember in Houston, Texas, they had at one time 20, now get this, 20 seafood restaurants among the Muslim community, 20 Fish Kings and Fish Boats in Houston, seafood restaurants in Houston among the African-American Muslim community there. So it created hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs across the whole country. I used to have a seafood distributing company. We had 2 vehicles, we had 21 commercial accounts, so Jackson State University, and 20 other commercial accounts on a regular basis from the seafood that was brought in. So in that sense, yeah, knowledge follows good character. Good character is that important. That's why in school, children, when they're acting up, they don't learn. You have to get children under control in order to have a learning environment. Knowledge follows good character. So he makes that a point, how the character was so erect and so strong. He makes that a point in his observation when he gets out of prison, he becomes part of the community in Detroit. He says that he talks about the temple. When you go in the temple, I remember this. First time I walked through the temple door years ago, I was 19 years old, 19 years old. I reached out and opened the door, and the door opened. It spooked me out. They had a 2-way mirror, they can see you coming, they open the door for you, you reach for it. So I remember going into the temple first time, this brother standing there with a black suit on, black tie, haircut real low, sharp clothes, dressed very deep, very immaculate, and a sister there dressed in all white, and the ladies that were in the Nation Islam dressed immaculate, they were all white, stuff like that. And I remember that, and going inside, women on one side of the room sitting in chairs, the men on the other side of the room sitting in chairs, the minister be up front. Behind the minister be a big board. And that board would be divided. One half would have the Christian star, has Islam, Christian star, freedom, justice, and equality. going down vertically. The other side of the border have Christianity, a black man hanging across, and then a black man hanging from a tree, and then murder, enslavement, and oppression. So make a choice. So I remember those days, that after the meeting, how they have the cuisine, the special Black Muslim Nations on cuisine, the bean pies, the bean soup, and the whole wheat bread, and later on we had the fish, the white Asian fish. I remember those days. So he talked about all this, in the first chapter. Then he talks about how once a month he used to go see Elijah Muhammad. There's only two temples at the time. There's temple number one, temple number two. Temple number one opened by Farad Muhammad. Temple number two opened by Elijah Muhammad. So they usually leave temple number one in Detroit and drive to Chicago once a month to see and hear Elijah Muhammad. So he said, he talked about this first time he goes, and they had 10 cars, a caravan, 10 cars, to go down there to temple number two to hear Elijah Muhammad. How impactful it was emotionally to see Elijah Muhammad walk into the room. He walked in the room surrounded by FYI. Elijah Muhammad was a very small man, short, frail man, brown skin, short, frail man. He said it was so emotionally impactful to see him walk into the room. He said he had an emotional impact on him. To see him walk in the room. He said Elijah Muhammad got up and talked the normal talk that was used back in those days. The black man was the original man, white man was the blue-eyed devil. Astaghfirullah, we don't believe that now. Astaghfirullah, and that how the black man had been enslaved and murdered and lynched and killed, and by the white man had been stripped of our names, our culture, our religion, history, all the things, the normal stuff that was taught back in those days by the nation of Islam. But he says during the course of the Elijah Muhammad talk, he said he paused for a minute and then he called his name, asked him to stand up without looking at him directly. He stands up. See, they are acquainted because during his prison time, he used to write letters like Elijah Muhammad would correspond with him as well. So they were acquainted with each other. So he was happy to see Malcolm out of prison. So he asked Malcolm to stand up. He used a parable to try to teach Malcolm how important discipline and remaining faithful. It's one thing being a Muslim or whatever in prison. When you get out of prison, this is what all the temptation is, all the allurement is once you get out. So he used this parable to try to teach this lesson to Malcolm. Malcolm makes a note about this. He said that he's never had a problem with faithful in Islam. He said even when he was at odds with Elijah Muhammad, he was still very faithful in Islam. He believed in Elijah Muhammad more than Elijah Muhammad believed in himself. He was faithful in general in Islam, even throughout all his trials and tribulations that he had. He makes a point of that. So they end up going to dinner. Wilford, his brother Wilford, member of the Nation of Islam, and knew Elijah Muhammad, and this is such a small community, only 200 people there. The Nation of Islam was very small at the time. They ended up going to dinner at Elijah Muhammad's house. And then, of course, at this dinner, Malcolm sitting back thinking that, okay, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad will drop some deep, profound wisdom on us. But instead, he wants to engage in talk, small talk, conversation. So we asked him to just have a conversation. And Malcolm, he's never been one to hold back and refrain from talking. So he talked about something that was on his mind. He was dismayed that when more people coming out to the temple when they had meetings, while half the seats were vacant. So he asked Elijah Muhammad, he says, instead of waiting for Allah to send people to us, what do you suggest we do to get the word out about what you're teaching? So Elijah Muhammad tells him, go after the young. Go after the young and the old will fall. Then immediately when Malcolm gets back to Detroit, that's what he does. When they have meetings, I remember this vividly, we had meetings on every Wednesday and Friday night, 7 o'clock, on Sundays at 1 p.m. Meetings, before the meeting, we just go out inviting people to come to the meeting. It was called fishing. This is a term that comes from Malcolm, called fishing, going out fishing for people, trying to get them to come to the meeting. So Malcolm was going out to pool halls, nightclubs, corners, wherever young Black people are hanging out. And they target young people, And I remember when I got in Nation Islam, we were all young. I started going around Nation Islam. I was 19 years old. My friends, 19, 20 years old. I got my ex when I was 20, 21. So they target young people, So Malcolm did this, went out and targeted young people. And the temple grew, had more people coming to the meetings. And along with that, the next time, a couple months later, driving to Chicago here, Elijah Muhammad caravan, instead of 10 cars, they had 25 cars going there. So more than double, So Malcolm was an activist, he's an activist. He's an activist even in prison, So through his efforts, his hard work, it doubles, more than double, and more people come to the temple. So when they make it back to Detroit sometime later, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is very impressed with the work that Malcolm has engaged in, the fishing and so forth, the activism that he's engaged in there in Detroit. So he comes, Elijah Muhammad pays him a visit in Detroit. He comes to Detroit. He's very impressed with what Malcolm is doing. During that same time, Malcolm got his ex. He had been Malcolm Little, but he dropped the Little, and the ex was very significant. I got my ex in 73. The X signified that you don't know, and it's accurate. Black people don't know what their real last name, family name is. The names that we have are, according to the book, and we was taught then was just slave names. They're slave names, not your real last name. So the X stood for unknown. They really don't know what your family history is, heritage, your name, your family name. Down through generations, he was unknown. So that's what the X represented. That name that you had was a slave master name. It wasn't a badge of honor, it was a badge of shame. The same people murdered you, enslaved you, lynched you, chopped your feet off and things like that, and tongues out and stuff like that, and you gored your eyes out and enslaved you. Those are the names that you had. It was like a badge of shame when a badge of honor held that name. So that's what the X represented. During the same time, someone suggests, he doesn't know whether it's Elijah Muhammad or Minister Hassan. Someone suggested that he become assistant minister. So he becomes assistant minister in Detroit. And as assistant minister, he gives talks here now and then. In this chapter, he mentions some of the talks. There's a brief summary of some of the talks that he gave then early on as assistant minister. One of the things that stood out, one of the talks he talked about, he said that you look at my complexion. Malcolm had a lighter complexion. He said, look at my complexion. He said, not just my complexion, look at the complexion of us in this room. Look around at all of us in this room. You see our different complexions? He said, not only, I'm paraphrasing, not only did the white man, the so-called blue-eyed devil, I really hate using that phrase, but we're talking about the book. Of course, we don't believe that. The blue-eyed devil, the same blue-eyed devil who he said, not only did he murder us, not only did he mutilate us, not only did he enslave us and oppress us, he raped our mothers, he raped our daughters historically, raped our mothers, raped our daughters, he raped our sisters, he raped our nieces. He would rape the mother in the bush, rape the daughter in the bush the same day, the mother and the daughter. This man who had blood dripping from his hands. Not only was he a murderer of black people, he was a rapist of black people as well. How dare this man expect us to love him? I remember those talks. The Nation of Islam has some great orators. Malcolm's probably the top of the very best, top of the pedestal. There's some great orators. Even when I was in Jackson, the minister there he had great oratorical skills, very, very good. At that time, he was one of the wisest people I ever met. He's very wise, very interesting man, very interesting man. So these ministers that was given senators of senators about Elijah Muhammad, very smart people, very eloquent speakers and so forth. So they would say different things and get you all emotionally charged up. And you'll go out thinking that you are special. You look at other African-American people, we say they're dead. They need to be resurrected from the dead. We say they're dead, mentally, spiritually, morally, socially dead, resurrected the dead, we call them the dead. So you saw yourself, especially to get you that charged up. You would boat out of those temples, going out doing different things, selling papers, so forth, doing different things. So I remember those days, I remember those days. So he became the assistant minister, and shortly after that, but he does say this. He says he remembered giving talks, lectures. After lectures at night, he would go walking around in the city, not saying anything to anyone, just walking around, observing the technology of the white man, observing his technology on the effects that this culture and the technology of the so-called devil had on the black man. He taught the black man to hate himself, to drink, to use drugs and stuff like that, conditioned to do these things. He said he would go around choked up. I remember being choked up myself, choked up over the condition of black people at the hands of this brutal man. So he mentioned that. Shortly after the FBI comes to visit him at work and asks him to go with him. He goes down to the FBI office. And I read this, I'm thinking the worst. I'm sure he was thinking the worst too. And found out the FBI wanted to know why he hadn't registered for the Korean War. So he registered for the Korean War, gets out of the way. He never hears from them after that point. He became very close with Elijah Muhammad and his family. He had changed jobs, worked for a motor company then up in Detroit. And every chance he was off, he would go to Chicago to visit Elijah Muhammad. And he would go there and they would talk, have dinner and talk. He became very close. He said Elijah Muhammad treated him like a son. He got to know him extremely well. He would even go different places with Elijah Muhammad in the city because they had businesses in the city. He would get in the car with Elijah Muhammad going to different businesses. He was talking. He said he felt like he was like one of Aristotle's students felt big with Aristotle. He said he felt that way. I thought that was interesting to make that analogy. So he said he got to know Elijah Muhammad's mother, Mother Marie. Mother Marie lived with Elijah Muhammad. He said Mother Marie told him this, said that when she was 7 years old, they came from Centerville, Georgia. Their family name was Poole. The slave name they had was Poole then. So Elijah Muhammad's name was Elijah Poole. Then Elijah Kareem, then found Elijah Muhammad. She said that when she was 7 years old, this is Elijah Muhammad's mother. So she had a vision. She had a vision that she would give birth to a man that would be a powerful leader when she was 7 years old. She talked about Elijah Muhammad, said he's always been a very nice person, always concerned about other people, always loving his own people, African-American people, and always been interested in the Bible, and was a natural leader. Always frail, small and frail, even as a child, small and frail. Like Muhammad told Malcolm that he's always known that one day he'd be able to unlock the mysteries, the hidden mysteries of the Bible. So Mother Marie tells him a lot about Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm spent a lot of time together. And every time he go up there, they spend a lot of time and talking and so forth, Mother Marie said that Elijah Muhammad in Centerville, Georgia, eventually got married Clara, his wife named Clara. Clara died before Elijah Muhammad did. He said that Elijah Muhammad, he worked there in Centerville, Georgia. He never liked the fact that Black people, when they worked in Centerville, Georgia, they would get cursed a lot by their white bosses, even if it was in the sawmill or on the farm, you cursed. He would ask white people not to curse him. He remembered this white guy cursing him one time. He got him so angry, he quit the job and he moved to Detroit. I believe it was 1925, he moves to Detroit. So that brings Elijah Muhammad to Detroit. 5 years later, a very interesting thing happened. 5 years later, around 1930, we was taught July 4th, 1930, when this man, mysterious sick pillar, Farad Muhammad, he had different names, W.D. Farad, W.F. Farad, Farad Muhammad. This man appeared in Detroit in the midst of a depression. A lot of people in America was poor. And these Black people living in the ghettos and slums in Detroit was the bottom of the bottom, the poorest of the poor, dirt poor people during the Depression. He's going knocking door to door in these projects, in these apartment complexes, these homes, these dirt poor people, extremely poor people, knocking on the door, selling silk. Can you imagine that? selling silk, a silk peddler in the middle of a depression in Detroit, in the slum, selling silk and some other goods. Just think about that. They want to know, who are you? He would say, your brother from the East. I thought that was interesting. Your brother from the East, you know. And he would go around and selling silk, and he would talk to the people as well, trying to get an audience with them. He would tell them everything, don't eat pork, don't eat this, don't eat that. Eventually, he befriended some of them, and he had a meeting with some. And during the course of his meeting, he would tell them that I'm from the home of your ancestors. You know, your ancestors were all Muslims. The true religion is Islam. The true name of God is Allah. The white man is the blue-eyed devil. Astaghfirullah. Forgive me if I offend anyone. The black man is the original man. He's God. Astaghfirullah. The Almighty, all black people are God. The Almighty is the one with the most wisdom among them. There's one who is the special God. For Rob Muhammad's supposed to be that special God, or Messiah then, you know. That he was the Messiah, that the black people was the lost sheep of Islam. He had come to redeem and to return the lost sheep to their own. You know. That's what his mission was, according to what he told the people. So eventually he gets a few people to follow him, accept him. He sets up a class of people training to be ministers, and he and Elijah Muhammad is included in his class. You know. And then after some training, he chooses one of them to be the supreme minister. He chose Elijah Muhammad to be the supreme minister. And a lot of others did not like it because Elijah Muhammad was not eloquent. I've heard Elijah Muhammad talk. He was not eloquent. Elijah Muhammad said he's never been ashamed to tell people that he had only a fourth grade education. He said because he was taught by Allah, taught mathematics and taught by Allah. He said Allah taught him how to say words too. But he always had a sluggish tongue. You know. But Allah, he said, taught him to say words. So he never been eloquent, always had a sluggish tongue, but he used to make powerful statements. One example, he would say, cigarettes, fire at one end, a fool at the other end. Powerful way to paint that, you know. So we in Nation Islam, we thought no Muslims smoked cigarettes. And they didn't, you know. We were morally straight in every aspect of the word. I was shocked when I became classical Muslim and given my shots to see that some Muslims smoke. It was shocking to see that, you know. So he made powerful statements. He had a sluggish tongue, you know. Elijah Muhammad. You know. So these people, they didn't like the fact that the one with the most sluggish tongue and the least education among them was chosen to be their supreme minister. So jealousy breaks out. Elijah Muhammad called them hypocrites. See? This man, Farad Muhammad, and during this whole time, they started school, University of Islam for the Children, like one puts a children's school, you know, which is the birth of the first nationwide, privately owned school owned by Black people in this whole country by Elijah Muhammad, University of Islam. Now it's called Sister Clara Muhammad School, W.D. Muhammad High School, and it still exists today. All right. Now, he says this. He says that in the book that Farad Muhammad disappears mysteriously in 1934. There's some stories, some things I've heard about that. Maybe I can share this with those who will remain after I finish for the discussion. But he mysteriously disappears in 1934. These hypocrites, people who are jealous of Elijah Muhammad, they get after Elijah Muhammad. They run him out of Detroit. He leaves his family there. He runs out of Detroit. He starts a temple in Detroit. He runs out of Chicago. He starts a temple in Chicago. Number 2. Every city had a number. He left Chicago with then number 2, 3 was in Milwaukee. Then he went to DC, number 4, started a temple in DC, number 4. Yeah. Everybody come in and you come Nation up, you get your X, you know, get your X. I heard something about this, interesting about getting the X. Mel Sarada said that in their community, they had a big Nation Islam community in New York. He said they had a brother, his name was Robert 22X, Robert 222X. I mean, there was 222 other Roberts in that community. If your name was John 13X, and then there was 13 other Johns. You see, Malcolm X, because he was the first Malcolm, and another Malcolm come in, then Malcolm 2X and Malcolm 3X. indicating that Malcolm was in the community. But anyway, getting back to Elijah Muhammad, he had to run from city to city, trying to stay in front of these, what he called hypocrites, stay away from there. Eventually, he's arrested. He said the hypocrites behind this, and he's arrested for draft evasion. I think it was 1942, 1940, something, 45, mid-40s. He said that he was arrested, convicted, sentenced to 5 years, he did 4 years. He was arrested for draft evasion, although he's beyond the draft age. He was in his 40s. So how could there be draft evasion? But anyways, it's a wonderful chapter. It's packed in with a lot of good information. So hopefully we cover most of the good stuff, but we're going to have a discussion afterwards. So alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. I'm sorry it took so long. We'll end it with a short dua. We'll do Surah to Asa. A lot of the Sahabas of Prophet Islam, they would do Asa with the part. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعصر إن الإنسان لخسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر صدق الله العظيم.